All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
It is the Mark Thompson Show. Where's Mark Thompson? Tony, what happened to Mark Thompson?
I don't know.
Is he
Where'd
okay?
he go? Well, we got some stuff he sent us over the weekend. I know exactly what he was doing.
He is Super Bowling it up is what happened there.
Yeah,
we got some video. Mark Thompson in Las Vegas, and we'll talk about what he was up to. I see a lot of people talking about the Super Bowl, and actually Tony and I were talking about it before we came on the air as well. We were debating the best commercials of the Super Bowl, and
the game wasn't much to watch. So.
No, well, I mean, in California here,
I guess
I don't think most of us cared about the teams that were playing, but
it should have been Lions Bills. That would have been a way better game.
The traditional game. Super Bowl trappings, the halftime show, the commercials. I saw this list of the best commercials for the Super Bowl, and we'll get into it in just a few seconds. Thank you for being here. Please click the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the show, the last time I looked, Tony, we were at like 92,000 subscribers. Incredible. So we're well on our way to 100,000. We want the YouTube plaque.
We gotta have that plaque.
We're going to get it. What are we at right now, Tony?
I'm checking right now. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I sprung it on you.
We're going to hit it this week. 97,000.
Are you kidding me?
We're at 97.
Okay, that's awesome. So we're at 97,000.
Okay, everyone, we got to do it today when Mark isn't here.
Isn't that be great? Tell all your friends to subscribe. We'll hit 100,000 when he's not even here.
He's not here.
This is the best plan ever. Boy, that'll really piss him off.
I know, right?
You want to see the anger tomorrow morning. This is amazing. Yeah, 97,000. Who would have thought?
97.2 right now.
When we started this show,
you guys put the work in, man.
2 years ago, after our little radio station, our massive radio station in San Francisco imploded, and we started on this platform, and we just 101 user at a time. Who would have thought we would get to 97,000? I mean, I think we hoped.
I thought you had it in you.
You did? Okay. Yeah. So that's pretty exciting stuff. We'll keep our eye on it through the show and see if we even get close.
I'll pay attention.
Okay.
I'll be watching.
So let's talk. We disagree on the Super Bowl commercials, Tony, because I saw a few of them, and I saw this one, which is listed on this list of the best commercials, but you thought they didn't get the one that you thought was the best.
Yeah, on that list, they had a bunch of stuff. To me, the best one was the Mountain Dew commercial. That was the most Super Bowl ad of it was. Is
this the one with Seal?
Being a seal.
Seal is a seal. That's pretty good.
He literally re-recorded "Kiss from a Rose" with dumb lyrics. That is the epitome of a Super Bowl commercial.
I mean, I wonder how much that hurt his soul to have to do that.
No, he was actually in the commercial himself too, as himself.
But,
I think he was.
You think he just had fun with it? Yeah.
Hey, Seal, here's a wheelbarrow of money. Yeah, I think he got over it real quick.
That's
that song
funny.
was from a movie soundtrack, so whatever.
Oh my God.
Batman, wasn't it? One of the Batman movies.
I thought this was an interesting commercial. It was more of a PSA with Snoop and Tom Brady. I think, are we allowed to play it?
Oh, we can, whatever. Let's try it.
Okay, let's play it.
I'll be watching. If we get struck, I'll have to edit it out later. So people who watch it now, they're the only ones who get it. If you see no commercial, it's because we got hit.
After the whole flap about whether to take end racism off of the end field and put what was it like, preach love or
choose love, I think is
choose love, whatever it is. I didn't expect them, I guess, to go here, and so it was kind of nice to see that they still had a commitment to ending hate.
Why do they feel the need to lecture? There's better ways to do this. That's to me what I don't understand. It's to me, it says what they feel about their football audience.
But maybe they know there's a wider problem in society. And when you see these two people who are TikTok icons and have a lot of following, then you're more likely to go, oh, okay, well, if they can get along, if they can collaborate on this, then maybe it kind of tamps the hate down.
I don't know. I don't see it. I thought, like I said, I'll play the commercial viewer if you want me to play it. Ready?
Yeah, let's watch it.
Let's play it.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
I hate you because we from different neighborhoods.
I hate you because you look different.
I hate you because I don't understand you.
I hate you because people I know hate you.
I hate you because I think you hate me.
Because I need someone to blame.
Because you talk different.
Because you act different.
Because you're just different. Man, I hate that things are so bad that we have to do a commercial about it.
Me too.
I liked it. You thought it was useless?
It's luxury, and I just don't think it's whatever. I think it has no weight, in my opinion. That's me.
I also think that there's, a lot of kids watching the Super Bowl, and I'm hopeful that they see, people that they look up to and maybe take something away from it.
I think the better one was the Rocket Mortgage one, where they just ended up playing John Denver's Country Road, going, here's families, here's babies, life. It's like that was a better spot, in my opinion.
Okay, well, some of the ones that the internet is calling out for being the best, they like the Dunkin' Donuts one.
That was all right. It was just dumb. It was just a bunch of cameos in it, and
they like
the Starbucks in it.
They like the Ram automakers, the Ram truck one.
That was luxury too. It was just Harrison Ford being luxury.
Rocket Mortgage.
The Rocket one was good.
That's the one.
That was good. That was the one thing I saw in a lot of ads this year were like family, kids growing up. It was like that. Yes, this is good. Yeah. This is how you do it, man.
They also called out the Hellman's mayonnaise one. And I guess like the when Harry met Sally scene. Yeah. I missed that one. Angel Soft toilet paper, that Budweiser.
I'll give him that. That was again a very Super Bowl ad. Basically, the ad was, "Why are you here? Go to the bathroom right now's your chance to go to the bathroom." That's literally what the ad said.
Budweiser, Coors Light, Megan 2.0, Oikos yogurt, Taco Bell. Those are the top.
Yeah.
I don't know. We all have our favorites, apparently, but it was not
Carl's
the Super
Jr.
Bowl.
was good. I like the Carl's Jr.
Oh, you like? Did you?
Funny.
Okay.
It was funny.
I was going to say it's not the Super Bowl people expected. I don't think people expected such a blowout.
Oh God, no.
Right. And so after the Super Bowl, there was no big love moment with Taylor and Travis on the field. It was Travis.
The crowd booed her there too.
I saw that. But it was the Eagles fans.
It was Eagles fans booing a Chief. Is what it was.
Yeah, it wasn't. Because I don't think they were booing Taylor Swift as a person. They were just booing her because she was once an Eagles fan and now she's a Chiefs fan.
Well, the crowd was heavy Eagles. Like when the Chiefs came out, it was quiet. Like the crowd were cheering, but not much. And then the Eagles came out and it was loud. It was like, that crowd was heavy Eagles, and
And it was interesting that Trump took the opportunity to criticize her afterward, saying MAGA is unforgiving, as if it was all MAGA booing her, which clearly it was Eagles fans.
The crowd did cheer when he showed up. When they put him on the screen, the crowd did cheer.
Yeah,
it was
that's
loud.
True. It was true. I don't know. Maybe it was taped cheering.
No, I don't think so.
It was real cheering. I'd like to think it was taped cheering.
It wasn't.
By the way, speaking of taped, and I bring this up for a reason, you know how Trump was with the whole 60 Minutes flap over, they edited Kamala Harris's 60 Minutes interview, and now CBS should have its license pulled and what have you. There's a story this morning, I think over the weekend, Jake Tapper played it on CNN. And it's a 60 Minutes interview, or not a 60 Minutes interview. It's a Fox interview with Trump, where they obviously rearranged parts of his interview, edited parts of his interview.
They heavily edited Biden last year too. When they did the Biden interview last year, it was heavily edited.
Because it's totally normal for them to do it.
Yeah.
And there's journalistic ethics where you don't change the meaning of what the person is saying, but in order to fit it into a time frame, or to edit it so that you can play an ad or make a little teaser for the interview, you would edit an interview. I've never thought it was a big deal, but if you're going to pick on 60 Minutes for doing it, then you should pick on Fox for doing it for your own self. And it just shows the hypocritical nature of the whole thing.
Yeah, more for me, I didn't like the 60 Minutes interview because they cut her off and just talked for her. That was a bigger problem, I thought, with the 60 Minutes interview, remember?
Yeah, I didn't care for the way they edited it either.
That was like, that was where I had a problem with.
But you know what? Then you're not a big fan of 60 Minutes or the way they did things. And I may agree with you on that, but they have every right to edit it. And it just goes to, are they going to retain their audience if people don't like the way they're doing things? And that's a different issue, whether or not they do it and we like it, or whether or not they do it and it's somehow unlawful and they deserve a license pulled for it. Yeah, let people speak, let people decide whether they like it or not, and they'll have an audience or they won't. Anyway, this looks like Trump arriving at the Super Bowl. Yeah.
At least it was already like a guarded city, so it didn't add more cost with him being there, right?
I don't know. I'm sure they had to
a little bit, but I mean that thing was already a walled city from New Year's as well, you know. So at least he went to the game with already a ton of security. So
I was reading a story last night. This doesn't have to do with the Super Bowl, but it was a story about how he, after the threats against him and the attempts on his life during the campaign, they had him flying around in one plane, and they had a second plane that looked exactly the same that was like a dummy.
Oh, God.
They had to go to that expense to protect him. And I didn't realize that before. I mean, it makes sense that you would have two that look the same and, you know, whatever. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Wow. We are about to, both Northern and Southern California, we're about to get a big storm moving in.
Did we show the stuff from Mark?
Oh, I didn't. Let me tell you about the storm, and then we'll show Mark.
Yeah.
Big storm. It's significant because in the Bay Area, apparently the chill started today. It's going to be really, really cold, freezing in some areas. And then on Wednesday, we get another dumping of rain. And I think Wednesday is when it starts in Southern California as well. And in the East Bay and South Bay Hills, we could get 1/10 of an inch of snow. I know, not really enough to go up and play in, but we could see 20% chance of snow in the East Bay and the South Bay Hills. I don't know if you have the snow chance in the South Bay, but I know you guys are going to get a bunch of rain, which is concerning, rather, after all the fires. Pardon me. Yeah.
Oof.
Let me take a sip.
One time when it's I was telling earlier in the show, like before pre-show, like how one time it snowed in Corona during high school. It happened, and everyone just went, "It's snowing!" And we just all went outside and
just walked out.
Like,
That's
you
it.
Can't leave. You can't leave. We're like, we're going outside. It's snowing.
You kind of have to. It's like once in a lifetime.
Yeah, it
happened one time in Petaluma in my lifetime that it snowed like in my front yard, and it maybe stayed for 20 minutes. That was it. But still, you have to, right? Yeah. All right. So Mark went to a massive Super Bowl in Las Vegas over the weekend, and he was kind enough to take video of his experience. Hit it, Tony.
This is a Super Bowl party from Las Vegas. It will be minutes from now that this entire place will be filled with some of the most esteemed degenerates in all of America. Is there food? You better believe it. It's a combination of a wedding reception and a bar mitzvah reception as they load things up for what will be a ballroom filled with anticipation and shame. Back to you in the studio.
Oh, so there he is. That's the beginning of the party. And then I think we have a party closeout. And I don't think it went very well as far as Mark and the gambling. Unfortunately, I don't think he had the
Chiefs didn't cover the spread.
No,
they didn't.
I don't think it worked out for him. But the party looks really nice. Here he is again. Here's the last one.
Ladies, I will tell you, if you're looking to meet a degenerate gambler who's capable of losing the family fortune in a hot weekend, why, you've come to the right place. Actually, there are many wealthy men here. You will have to deal with some cosmetic compromises, but this is the big game party where everybody is compromising. Come on, let's get it on. Back to you in the studio.
Oh, there it is. And I think he's traveling home today. I don't know. Did you bet on the game, Tony?
Oh no.
No, me neither.
I was at work watching it, so I was working while just like I was popping up. I wasn't even around people. I was alone in the studio.
By the time I even
stuff.
remembered it was on, I think it was almost over. So, whatever.
Well, my shift literally started at 3:00, so right when the game started is when I just started working.
It's over. Yeah. So, Tony, Trump did something I agree with.
Oh no.
I know you want to fall over right now, right?
Well, he did one thing too. I was like, okay, the plastic straw thing. I'm like, all right, dude, I kind of like that one.
So I'm still not. Oh, you like the plastic? See, I did not like the plastic straw
Paper
thing.
straws are the worst.
Yeah, but there's different types of straws. You don't have to get the paper that melts in your drink. They have
Those
different
are
kinds.
That's what most businesses have, and they're terrible.
So Tony is talking about the order now and see, this one actually bothered me. Because I have my silicone straw, like I'm a reusable straw girl. I don't want to contribute to the plastic of the world. Did you know this, Tony? That new research has been done that measures the average amount of plastic in the human brain. Because there's plastic floating around in there.
Oh yeah, everything.
And it's increased 50% since 2016. And the chances are very good that you and I sitting here today have as much plastic in our brain as equal to the weight of a plastic spoon.
Wow.
Right?
Probably from all the water bottles more than anything else, I'm guessing. Because everyone drinks from water bottles now.
So we're going the right direction with this whole straw thing. And then Trump writes on Truth Social, I will be signing an executive order next week, ending the ridiculous Biden push for paper straws, which don't work, back to plastic. See, there's all kinds of other straws. There's the corn kind. There's other things they can do that aren't paper. And I just think that it's very misguided to think that we should throw more plastic back in the world. And I hope that there are restaurants and Starbucks kind of places that have switched over that don't switch back because of this.
I disagree.
I disagree with you, Tony. So that's the one I disagreed with. But the one I agreed with is the pennies.
Let's hear it. Oh,
the pennies.
Yeah. Who uses them anymore, right?
Because so Trump is saying, this is a rare moment, by the way, when I would agree with him on anything, but he is directing the Treasury to stop making pennies. Because when we make a penny, it costs us 3.7 cents to make 1 cent penny.
And they're not made of copper anymore, right? Either.
No, they're made of zinc.
Yeah.
All right. So in fiscal 2024, the cost of making a penny was 3.7 cents. So we're losing money on pennies. As a matter of fact, I don't know, what do they say? $84 million we lost on pennies, making pennies recently. So I agree that the penny has to go, but I don't know how it's going to work. Say you're at a place and you pay cash and you're due back 9 cents. Do we, as a customer, forfeit the 4 cents?
Exactly.
Or is it the business that forfeits the 4 cents?
Who's going to be the first? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's always going to fall on the consumer. So, I mean, if you're paying with a credit card, it doesn't seem to make much difference, but it's the people paying in cash that are going to get screwed on the penny front. And it doesn't seem like a big deal, but all those pennies add up over time. Maybe if it's like, I don't know what a rule would be, but if it's 4 cents, they have to give you a nickel. But if it's 2 cents, like if it's under, 3 cents, then you just forfeit the pennies. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know why I'm so worried about the pennies, but I do think that it's time to get rid of pennies.
Definitely Trump things of him saying something with there's no plan. It's just, it's something maybe a lot of us, like I said, a lot of us think like, are pennies even useful anymore? But at the same time, there's no plan.
No. I feel like if we're going to get rid of the penny, which apparently we are, then we should take Abraham Lincoln and replace Andrew Jackson's currency with Abraham Lincoln. If you're looking at who's the more deserving president of currency. Because I would hate to...
bill. Isn't Lincoln on the 5?
No. I think he's just on the penny, right? Now we have to look it up. Yeah, I know he's on the penny.
When was the last time any of us handled cash? This
remember. As a matter of fact, over the weekend, is he on the 5? All right,
on the 5.
Then that's okay. It's
that
funny
was
because
good for a little longer, but maybe not much.
over the weekend, I drove to a drumline competition in Sacramento, and it was early and dark in the morning when we left, and so I turned my headlights on. And then when we got there, I thought I turned them off, but I left my parking light on, and so I killed the battery. So I had to call the guy to come out and jump the car. And you're supposed to tip the tow truck driver, right?
Really?
Nowadays, you're supposed to tip the tow person. Of course, I did this when I have no cash. So I tell the guy, I can PayPal ya, I could Venmo ya. I ended up PayPaling the guy. That's how little cash, that we deal with these days. But I guess we need to carry some for tipping people.
This whole tipping thing is so weird nowadays. I just don't get it.
I
literally don't. I don't eat out anymore for that reason.
Tipping?
I just don't. I just want to deal with it anymore. So I just don't eat out anymore.
Yeah, you're a little bit cheap, Tony. A little bit cheap. I know.
Gary's here, just so you know.
Oh,
Gary's
okay. Talking. Well, we have a lot to talk about. There are a lot of political stories that are extremely important, not the kind of wacky ones we just went over, but I'm so excited to welcome to the show someone I used to interview all the time for stories.
He just disappeared.
Oh, did he disappear? Well, let me tell you about Gary Dietrich.
Call back, yeah.
Because every time I needed him, he was always there for me. Whether I was doing a story late at night for the next morning, or whether I needed him live in 5 minutes, Gary Dietrich always stepped up and was always there for me at KGO, just the way he's been here on the Mark Thompson Show here for us as well. Gary Dietrich is the iHeart TV and radio political analyst, and he is also the analyst here on the Mark Thompson Show on Mondays as well. It is Gary Dietrich, everybody. Hi.
Hey, how are you, Kim?
There you are. I was worried I wouldn't be able to hear you for a second. I'm good. So a lot happened over the weekend in the world of Trump. Did you watch the Super Bowl, first of all?
I watched the second half of it, I'll have to confess, and for my Kansas relatives, that's the homeland for the Dietrich clan, by the way. And man, when I walked in at halftime, I was like, you can't be serious, people. But, the Chiefs redeemed themselves, but no three-peat. They had their run. And I think my proclivities having grown up in the Bay Area, but it's time to go back to the Niners. That's my thing. Okay, that's enough. Let's get the Niners back in the Super Bowl, people.
You won't get any argument from our Bay Area contingent. So something happened over the weekend, and it's really generated a lot of people, a lot of freakouts from the Trump administration. A judge has blocked Elon Musk from the Treasury, and they are not happy. The folks there in the Trump administration, as a matter of fact, the higher ups like JD Vance, Elon Musk, coming out and now questioning the validity of the court system, saying, hey, what right did they have to tell us? There are people, commenting, oh, they should just ignore that order. They should just do what they want to do anyway. And I worry about perhaps having some type of, well, we already should have a constitutional crisis when you look at, taking away financial decisions from Congress, and now the potential that they're going to ignore court orders, or that they're going to, as Elon Musk says, we should impeach the judge who came down on the wrong side of his decision. Are we scared yet, or am I just freaking out for nothing?
Well, it depends on where you sit, right?
I mean, I don't want to be hysterical about it, but that really worries me a little bit.
Let's back up a step here, okay? So we know that this is, in the last 3 weeks, there have been a number of court decisions that have at least, most of these have been temporary, okay, stopped a lot of Trump actions. I mean, it was USAID, kibosh put on that, to some degree, the birthright citizenship, the letting go of, the offer of a hiring freeze, slash buyout for federal workers. I mean, this has just been a continuum of court, interventions in some of these executive actions. So we can expect that to continue. That's number one. Number two, this doesn't come as a surprise. All this back and forth between the executive and judicial, does not come as any surprise to anybody in Washington nor in Congress. Why? One simple reason. Democrats, to their dismay, as you well know, lost every lever of power in Washington. I mean, the House, the Senate, the White House. What does that mean? It means they have no power of subpoena, for example, in the Congress. They have no power to call special investigative hearings. So what does that mean? That means those responsibilities that Democrats would likely initiate, and both parties have done this over the years, over various administrations, would initiate, cannot be done right now. So where does the power then fall, Kim? For the most part right now, to the courts. And who are going to be the major players in that? Well, we're already seeing. Most of it's going to come, a lot of the big actions are going to come from state attorneys general in the blue states. And so, for example, last week, that happened, 17 or 18 of them got together and did this. So we can expect this to continue. And the reality of it is, this is a long-standing battle between the executive branch and the other two branches of government over who gets to have say about what. It's just certainly more dramatic now because of really the unprecedented pace and scope of actions the Trump administration has taken, which, by the way, are much faster and much bigger than they were, of course, during Trump version 1. So that's where we are. Are some people scared? Yes. Is the court system intervening? Yes. Are all these actions going to be ignored? Right now, we don't have evidence of that. We don't see, the Trump people just riding over these things. And this is going to play out. I will tell you this last piece. I really think that there is some you're driving and you're going up and down those hills in San Francisco, and you pretty much have 1 foot over the brake the whole time, right? Mm-hmm. That's where I think a lot of Republicans, particularly Senate Republicans, are right now. It's okay, you're going to take these actions, but we're going to try to put a stop to a lot of this. That is the Democrats and the courts. And Republicans are saying, look, you try to circumvent the court system, that's when we're going to start pumping the brakes.
I don't remember in history, and maybe because I wasn't paying attention or I wasn't as worried about it or the alarm bells weren't going off, I don't remember a time when someone from the executive branch questioned the validity of someone from the judicial branch. But perhaps it has happened throughout history, and my alarm bells weren't going off.
Well, you don't have to look very far back. When the Trump appointees to SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, right, started issuing decisions early in the Biden administration that, weren't favorable. First, they didn't come from the White House. First, it came from Congress, you may remember, expand the court. The courts become illegitimate. That word was used repeatedly, right? So there were questions about, because of the, perceived ideological and legal drift of the court, there were a lot of questions raised. And that is not uncommon, but I think it certainly has accelerated as we've seen in other areas, Kim, with the partisan nature of our current politics.
We have more tariffs being slapped down this morning by President Trump on steel, on aluminum, and apparently some retaliatory tariffs as well. And it looks like China is the recipient of most of this. Can you talk about the significance of a trade war with China in particular?
Well, to say we're are not in a trade war with China, I think you can say at this point, it's either low level or medium level almost all the time. What do I mean by that? It's like both sides are calibrating what they can get away with, how they can use it for leverage, and not just with each other, by the way, but what signals that sends about what clearly now has become a bipolar political world, with one side led by China and one side led by the U.S. Now, when it comes to specifics on metals, that is steel especially, but also aluminum, this was going on too, remember, during the Biden administration. And there's been a lot of concern about the United States being able to retain industrial capacity to meet our strategic needs and economic needs. And there's no getting away from the fact, because my mom came from the steel areas in Pennsylvania and Ohio. That industry's really suffered for a long time. And cheaper imports have really put a lot of the steel makers out of business, which is why you're seeing the major legal questions even right now about other nations being able to come in and buy U.S. steel manufacturers. So I think steel has always been, for many decades, sort of like the canary in the coal mine, right? It's like, if we can't save our steel industry, there's something about that. That's what we make cars out of. That's frankly what we make tanks out of. So yeah. I think you're going to see steel and aluminum is going to get a lot of the headlines. It's broader than that, but I would not be surprised to see those tariffs go into effect.
I think that China is going to put tariffs on the United States for the type of rare earth metals that are needed to make chips and high-tech items. So it may be that we'll see the cost of the new iPhone or whatever gadget we're looking for go up.
Well, it could be. Yeah. And then what's going to be interesting is to see, how this all plays out, because, we think so much about China and the U.S., but there's a lot of other people that manufacture things. And what's happened often in the past is what happens often with economics. Some other nations start stepping in, right? Hey, you know what? We could make the iPhone for you cheaper than you can get it done in China right now, right? Yeah. So I think you're going to see a lot of horse trading going on in a lot of these areas. But real quick on the rarefied minerals thing, that's why you're going to hear a lot, even this week, about Ukraine's massive resources in so-called rare earth minerals and how that's going to play out with the whole Russian-Ukraine war, because Zelensky over the weekend said, we're ready to make a deal with the U.S. to help guarantee our security and, yes, give you access to rare earth minerals, which, by the way, one other thing about that that's very important strategically is some of the ground that Russia has taken inside Ukraine. Reportedly, about half of the really exclusive rare earth minerals are under that newly acquired, quote unquote, Russian territory. So that's why getting that deal done and getting Russia to back out of some of those regions is very important, not just for the U.S., but for the entire Western world dependent on those kind of minerals.
It's interesting that now we're to the point where we're only going to help Ukraine if it benefits us financially, if we, because we want a thing from them, where it seemed like in the past we were helping because that's what America does as far as, the spread of democracy and tamping down the spread of communism and Russia being our enemy and all of these things and the land grab happening, that we were in it for different reasons. And now it's a transactional thing. Oh, you can give us rare earth minerals? Great. Then we'll give you some weapons and help you out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be mixed. I don't think there's any question about it. But, regardless of which administration is in there, Americans have just shown a declining interest in long-term conflicts, right? It doesn't matter whether it was in Afghanistan or any other part of the world. I think part of the challenge becomes sustaining a presence and also foreign aid, be it military or domestic, over a long period of time. And I think that's part of the pure political nature of modern politics. You can do it for a year, you can do it for a couple of years, but you start getting into a half decade plus, it becomes more challenging. So let's just see where this plays out. I think you're going to see, the way it looks right now, you could see some fairly major movement in the Ukrainian-Russian situation, I think, in the next few weeks, certainly the next few months.
Gary, I thought it was just all it would take was one phone call.
Right.
No, one phone call, it's over. Done.
Well, I think if anybody at this juncture who doesn't just use, I like to use the word calibrate, right? If you don't calibrate pretty much everything that comes from Donald Trump, it doesn't matter whether it's a weekend tweet or something out of the Oval Office, you just got to do that, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. It's sort of like certain sports figures or certain sports coaches. I'm not trying to trivialize the Oval in any sense, but you just take it with a grain of salt. Well, let's see what happens, when the stuff actually comes out next week. So that's where we are, and I think it's important though that calibration is important, because otherwise you just end up getting whipsawed and you freak out at midnight when maybe the freak out wasn't warranted.
Right, I completely understand. You mentioned conflict, and it brings me kind of back to during the election when there was a move for Palestinian Americans to not vote for Harris because of the Harris-Biden stance on selling weaponry to Israel. And the Palestinian Americans thought, how can we vote for people who are selling weapons that are killing our family members in the Gaza area? And while I understood that, I still felt like it was, the lesser of two evils. And now we have the State Department announcing $7 billion in an arms sale to Israel. Congress had blocked this deal. Now they're moving forward. We had Trump's, make the Gaza area into the Mediterranean of the Middle East. I wonder if people that thought originally that Trump would somehow be better, or they were making a statement against the selling of arms, if they have regrets, because now it does seem that it's even worse.
Yeah, well, okay, two things here. Let's start with the politics of it, okay? Everybody is waiting for the polling that's going to undoubtedly happen in a lot of these specific issues. And the one you're referring to, I have no doubt that in the next few weeks, there's going to be polling operations that go in to some of those areas, especially in the northern tier of states, Michigan and et cetera, where, large cadres of folks who were sympathetic to the Palestinian cause said that they, to your point, were abandoning the Harris-Biden ticket. And it's going to be interesting to see how they feel about it now. I mean, that polling, I'm sure we're going to see in the next few weeks. That's the political side of it. On the policy side of it, what was interesting about the State Department's approval of the $7 billion, what's interesting is they backed off some of the weaponry that would have been seen as more provocative or new. Everything, as I understand it this morning, that's in that $7 billion is already is possessed by Israel. And the delivery of these things won't be until 2028. So it's not like there's going to be, a massive infusion of new weaponry that's going to happen here, even in the next couple of years. So that's where that stands. I really, this thing about the Gaza Strip and making it into a resort area, I will put that into the all-time craziest ideas I have heard in international politics in the last decade. Is it going to happen? Oh, come on. I mean, I just think that is a non-starter. Even Republicans in Congress are going, okay, so nobody tipped us off about this. I don't know. I put that in the crazy category. We'll see where it ends up. I think right now the larger issue, and this is what Trump, I think, was trying to get at, but, certainly did it in a crazy way. And that is what is the rebuild in Gaza actually going to look like? Who's going to take charge of it, and who's going to pay for it? That right there is a major, major policy concern. Once we get past what's going to happen here with this temporary ceasefire and the hostages, the rebuild is going to be the really big problem. And Kim, I have not seen, for example, other Arab nations, they haven't stepped forward yet and said, we'll take charge of that. Nor has a Western alliance done that. Right now, everybody's pretty mum about that. But that really, to me, is going to be the biggest international, call it a crisis, when it comes to the Middle East going forward.
So CBS did the polling on the president's approval rating and all of the, different issues along the way. And the CBS News YouGov poll indicates that on the U.S. trying to take over Gaza, 13% said it would be a good idea. 47% said this is a bad idea. And 40% say they're not sure. It depends. So more Americans are like, yeah, we don't think we want to get involved in that. And that's interesting because overall, Trump's approval rating is pretty good. He got a 53% approval rating, 47% disapprove, which is interesting because of all the provocative things he's done so far.
Well, I'll tell you what's most interesting. That's the highest approval rating he's ever had. Mm-hmm. And that's what's shocking a lot of people, right? And conversely, you look at Biden's approval rating when he was leaving office, and he was down in the low 30s. So there has clearly been a political, maybe not, we'll see if it's an ideological shift, right? And how long lasting it is, for example, amongst blue collar working folks. I mean, this is going to be tracked very carefully over the next certainly 6 to 12 to 18 months leading into the next midterm as both parties decide how are they going to position themselves. I mean, Kim, it's remarkable to think about the fact that we are 21 months away from the next election, okay? And that is going to obviously dictate a lot of what happens in the second half of the Trump administration. Because if Democrats can pick up 6, 7, 8 seats in the House, then the brakes get put on big time on the second 2 years of Trump's administration. So, I think these polling numbers are going to be interesting, and people's appetite, let's just put it that way, for what Trump wants to get done in these first 6 to 12 months is going to be tested.
Yeah. One of the things he's done, and this kind of brings my hackles up as well, he has signed an order to establish a White House faith office. And apparently, the whole point of the faith office will be to fight discrimination, anti-Christianity, anti-Semitism, and other anti-religious bias, which sounds okay on the surface, but having a religious office in the United States government, it feels rather, let's step on the barrier between church and state to me.
Yeah. Well, this has been something that, some people lump this into the culture wars, basket. But really and truly, Kim, I think there's been several things over the last number of years that, Jews felt like, as you well know, when the whole October 7th, 2023 incident happened, right, they felt disregarded. They felt neglected. At other times, the Palestinians felt that way, right? Sure. And their faith perspectives. So I think I as objective as I can be about this, I wouldn't be concerned about there being an attempt to institutionalize certainly a particular faith. In many people's minds, it has to do with it's more of a defensive posture. It's more like, look, we feel like our values have either been discounted or ignored, and our faith has been put on the defensive rather than trying to impose something. Does that make sense? I think that's really that's at least the stated aim, and that has been the concern expressed by a lot of folks. I don't see at this juncture an appetite either in Congress or in the broader public to say we are going to advance a particular brand of faith.
See, it feels rather Project 2025-y to me. And apparently the office, which will be inside the White House, will be coordinating with the new Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who Trump said earlier would be named the head of a task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. And if you look at the whole Project 2025 and wanting to push a Christian agenda, it seems like we're getting pretty close to that.
Well, again, let's see what the office does. Let's see what specific actions are taken. There isn't a lot of meat on those bones yet. All right. So let's see what happens. But it clearly, again, is a response to a lot of sectors. And again, not just Christian sectors in the United States, feeling like religion in total has been discounted or even opposed. So, and there were a lot of voters who expressed that last year in a lot of polling that happened in those areas. And again, it wasn't just Christians. There were people in the Muslim community that felt that way. Certainly the Jewish community felt that way. And so let's see where it ends up.
All right. Well, we'll circle back around to this one, Gary Dietrich. Here's, speaking of culture wars, Trump did something that seems kind of ego-y, but maybe there's more deep meaning to this one. He said he is ending the terms of multiple members of the Kennedy Center board, and he's creating a new Kennedy Center board with himself as the chair. He said, I have decided to immediately terminate multiple individuals from the board of trustees, including the chairman, because they don't share our vision for a golden age in arts and culture. We will soon announce a new board with an amazing chairman, Donald J. Trump. This is what he writes on Truth Social. It's been said that, controlling the culture, the way people think about things, our art, our messaging, all of these things are important to who we are. What's the point of him doing this rather than focusing on, the politics at hand, rather than dipping his hand into the Kennedy Center board?
Yeah, well, I think you have to look at this in terms of that larger cultural war kind of issue we talked about. I mean, it's no secret, Kim, in California, that for a long time, and both sides have known this, that as they say, Hollywood, for example, the music industry have been more favorable towards Democrats and Democratic causes. That has been sort of something that's been taken as a given in politics for decades. Now, it's interesting that over the last 12 months or so, that's really been challenged in a lot of ways, right? And look at the people who took some slings and arrows about that. people like Snoop Dogg, right? They're like, what are you doing wanting to perform at an XYZ, right? I mean, it's been very interesting to see this play out over the last 6 months or so. But, I think the Trump reaction to the Kennedy Center in particular is the fact that, and I don't watch every Kennedy Center performance, I'll be honest with you, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I can catch them when I have time here or there. But, several of the performers there made some pretty sharp comments, during their performances about Trump, about the Trump administration, and it's a reaction to that. There's no question about that. Again, I think it's going to be, in Trump's view and in Trump's supporters' view, it's going to be an effort to bring what they believe to be more balance in that area. No president wants to be attacked, so to speak, from the stage, from the microphone at the Kennedy Center, a mile from the White House, right? I mean, that's no fun, right? So we'll see where that ends up. Ironically and interestingly, first ladies are traditionally put as honorary members of the board. So right. Melania Trump will be on there now too. And let's see, let's see where this board takes the thing. I mean, I think everybody be concerned if it just takes the other side, right? If now all of a sudden we got people from the stage and the microphone now bashing Democrats, that wouldn't be good either. I think we all hope and envision the Kennedy Center to be a pretty neutral place in the modern political world. Can we get there? I hope so.
The center said in a statement, it's the first time a president has moved to dismiss board members. So it doesn't happen very often. It's just another one of these things where it looks like a little thing and really it carries maybe much more significance.
Well, it could. I mean, again, let's see. To me, again, I always take the pronouncements and all the verbiage, especially in politics these days, with a giant grain of salt. Here's what we're gonna know, Kim. Who are the nominees going to be in the next couple of years, right? Who's going to actually get on that stage, and what are they going to do or say? That's going to be the proof of the pudding, right?
I'm guessing Lee Greenwood and the Village People. I don't know.
The Village People are a great example of people going, "What are you doing?" Performing at Trump things. So let's just see. Those people in their own defense, right, said, "Listen, we're not necessarily agreeing with him about everything, but in these days you can't do anything except somebody's going to put some politics behind it."
Let's move to California and kind of this interesting back and forth between Governor Gavin Newsom and Trump, because I saw an article in The Hill saying that Newsom is taking a friendlier tack with Trump in the sign of a new political reality. That's the headline. That maybe the approach that Governor Newsom is taking is a friendlier one. He's trying to be, put an olive branch out there. But at the same time comes this article, multiple articles about California and Governor Gavin Newsom approving $50 million to protect immigrants and defend the state against the Trump administration by basically creating a fund for lawsuits, because they know that they're going to need to be suing the Trump administration over and over again. So what is it? Are we friendlier, or are we preparing to fight, or both?
Yes. Yes. All the above. All the above. You're going to see very aggressive actions by California. By the way, that $50 million is split in half, and it was signed by the governor last week after being passed by the legislature earlier in the week. $25 million in that legal, you call it a legal defense fund. Really, it's a legal protagonist fund. It's aggressively suing the federal administration. 123 times, by the way, California did that during Trump version 1. And the other half of it is
that's not very friendly.
Yeah, right. And the other 25 million of that 50 is for immigrant services that's going to be given apparently through contracts to nonprofits that have already been working with immigrants. And the question there has become, and the question among several legislators in the Capitol in Sacramento was, well, wait a minute, is this going to be used as basically a legal defense fund? They said, no, it's for services to advance, the needs of immigrants. So we'll see where that plays out. I'll tell you one thing really interesting to me. Do you know who the very first Democrat that walked into the Trump Oval Office was in the last 3 weeks? The very first one, Gavin Newsom.
But
Gavin Newsom. It was not a member of. Well, but hang on. It was not a Democratic member of Congress in the House or the Senate. It was not a Democratic anything else. It was California's governor, the largest blue state in the country.
Yeah.
And that should say something, okay? Gavin knows very well one simple truth. The federal government funds a huge swath of state programs. It doesn't matter what it is. Most notably now, we know what that is. It's the LA Fire Recovery and Rebuild, all right? And that's why, interestingly, 2 weeks ago, you did not see Gavin Newsom on a conference call with 6 other blue state governors, New York, et cetera, high-profile Democratic governors that were on a call with Chuck Schumer, the Democratic head of the Senate, basically chewing him out that you need to get more aggressive about Trump. Newsom was not on that call because just days later, he was going to walk into that Oval Office and tell Trump, we really need your help in LA and beyond. And I think you're going to see a very interesting tap dance by Newsom, who is going to do everything he can to get all the federal dollars he can, because they're going to need them, not just for LA, but heck, if you ever have any snowball's chance of having this high-speed rail project done in California, it's going to have federal dollars, right? And then the other side of the coin, Kim's going to be real obvious. This is a guy, that is Newsom, that wants to be sitting where Donald Trump is in 4 years. And he's going to be playing a very delicate political, some would call it game, and how he navigates being anti-Trump versus, hey, I got to get stuff done for my state.
What's interesting to me about Governor Gavin Newsom going hat in hand to the Oval Office right now is that he shouldn't have to. Trump came out here. He saw the damage. He saw everything. He knows the people of Southern California need federal assistance. It should just be there. Why did Newsom have to go to Washington, D.C. and grovel and get that money? Is that something that most governors have to do in the time of a crisis?
Well, I'll tell you this. Let me give you an example, okay, that I happen to know quite a bit about in Northern California. Do you remember the big Caldor fire that happened, burned clear up to South Lake Tahoe, hundreds of thousands of acres? Okay, it almost consumed. I was up there the day after they evacuated the entirety of South Lake Tahoe. It was a ghost town, except for, a few other media people and me and the National Guard, right? And what's interesting out of that, President Biden had flown in to the Caldor fire zone, promised that there would be, federal help taken care of, everything. Kim, to this day, there has not been a FEMA declaration for individual assistance for the people whose homes were completely burned down in the town of Grizzly Flats up there, that it was utterly destroyed.
Yeah,
and Newsom went to Biden's administration. Dianne Feinstein, God bless her, when she was alive and representing the state in the Senate, went. They have not still been able to get that declaration passed. And that was through many years of the Biden administration. So the point is, it is a responsibility of a governor. And sometimes they do have to be very advocacy oriented, because sometimes the disaster dollars, people just think there's a disaster, a giant check gets written, and it's all done. It is not nearly that simple. And so I just want to point out, to be fair about it, that there are other communities in and around the country that are still struggling to try to get what they believe to be their rightful part of federal disaster help.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Speaking of the disasters, there's another potential insurance hike for Californians. State Farm wants an emergency 22% increase in homeowners insurance rates in the wake of these Los Angeles fires. They say if your home, and I think this means anywhere in California, not just in Southern California, if your home is covered by State Farm, the chances are good that you're going to face another 22% rate hike. I say another because we know that these insurance rates have steadily gone up over the last couple of years. The company sending a letter to the California Department of Insurance warning of a dire financial situation in the wake of the wildfires, requesting this emergency rate hike. They want an emergency 15% rate hike for condo owners, 38% rate hike for rental dwellings, 22% rate hike if you own your home. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I have really believed, Kim, that the insurance crisis, that is the home, auto insurance rates have been going up too. We don't have time to probably get into that. But when it just comes to home ownership, everybody knows this. If you have a mortgage, you have to have insurance. Okay. And that's the bottom line. And even people who don't have a mortgage anymore, some people have dropped their insurance because they feel like they just can't afford the rate hikes. And I personally believe that this insurance crisis, and that's really, we are now on the precipice of a crisis. I think it could become one of the top 2 or 3 political issues in our next governor's race in California in 2 years. I think it is that large scale. It is going to be felt, as you point out, potentially by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Californians. And I think truly we're in a situation now where the political implications of this, as well as the policy impacts, are going to be massive. I mean, on the scale that, Kim, you'll remember back when we had the energy blackouts and brownouts and crisis that eventually led to the first recall of a governor in California in 150 years in Gray Davis. And I think we are now politically near that kind of a powder keg.
So the two options, neither option seems good. First, we say, or the state says, all right, go ahead and raise your rates. And then there are people that say, listen, this company has plenty of cash in the bank. This is a money grab by them. They made $1.4 billion in homeowners insurance from 2020 to 2022. They have $135 billion in the bank. This is not an emergency. They don't need this money. But if you don't approve this emergency increase, then maybe do we have another insurer pulling out of California? And can we afford that to happen? I don't know.
Those are the dynamics of the concern, Kim.
Yeah.
I mean, State Farm is the largest home insurer in California, reportedly about 15% of the policies. They are, by the way, reportedly the largest home insurer in the entire United States. And so they have a lot of leverage because of that, right? Because as you say, they could say, well, we just can't afford to do business in this state anymore. And more to the point, we're going to pull out of a whole lot of other, quote unquote, high risk territories around the country. So the politics of this are fraught. You know, how deep does the California Insurance Office dig into their finances and have access to what, and then what, sort of like the PUC has to do with utilities, what's a quote unquote fair return then on their investment? These are all questions that people are posing. You know, the California Fair Plan, we don't have time to get into that in detail, but the government-backed plan of essentially the government sort of insurer of last resort, it too is going to be facing some real challenges as a result of the LA fires. And I'll tell you, this is going to play out in some very major ways in the next couple of years.
When you mentioned, and I didn't have this to talk to you about, but you mentioned the next gubernatorial election in California. Who do you see coming out in this race so far? Who has said they are going to run? And do you think Kamala Harris is going to stick her toe in the pool here in California?
Well, I tell you that the one name we know is not going to run, we learned last week, very high profile name, and that's California's Attorney General Rob Bonta, who said he's going to go ahead. He was widely believed to be very carefully looking at the governor's race, and we'll get into a couple of the other names real quick here in a second. But he said, no, I'm going to run again as Attorney General. We've got lots to do in the Trump administration. So he's already cast his lot with staying as Attorney General if he wins re-election, which probably right now is a reasonably safe bet. But what was interesting to me was, and that was surprised a few people, but more surprising is what he said after the comma. And he said, so I'm going to be supporting, guess who? Kamala Harris if she decides to run.
Okay.
Wow. Oh, wow. Now, why is that a big wow? Because you just have to believe he just didn't decide, wake up that morning, have his fried eggs or whatever he eats for breakfast. And, oh, you know what? When I make my announcement today, I'm just going to randomly throw my support to the former vice president. I highly doubt, and nobody believes that was true. It's probably the strongest indicator we have yet that Harris is likely to run. And if you believe a poll that was done maybe 6-8 weeks ago, right now, she'd be the leading candidate.
Wow. Which is interesting because when you see Newsom trying to play nice with Trump, I don't necessarily know that California is going to be in line for all the, for any perks if it's Harris versus Trump. And Harris has to be the one going into the Oval Office to say, where's my wildfire aid? That'll be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, the larger question beyond just our election in California in 2 years is she still aiming to go back? Does she want to take another shot at the White House in 28? Oh, I don't know. The current occupant of the California governor's office has his sights set on the 28 election too. So to me, the politics of this are very, very interesting. Is it going to be Kamala Harris versus Gavin Newsom for the 28 nomination, right? I mean, there's a lot of pieces of this that people are going to be watching carefully.
Gary Dietrich, thank you for coming on and having a great conversation with me today. I so appreciate it.
Oh, hey, my pleasure.
Yeah, Mark will be back next week. We'll see you then. Bye.
Okay. Bye,
Gary Dietrich. Gary Dietrich's report is sponsored by Bill Campbell of Remax Gold. You can call or text Bill 530-448-7474. That's 530-448-7474. If you are in the area where Bill Campbell is, this is a great real estate agent. If you're relocating into or from Northern California, looking for a highly respected real estate professional like Bill Campbell, Remax Gold, again, you can call or text Bill 530-448-7474. That's 530-448-7474. All right, let's do a little news. What do you think about that, Tony? I like the idea. We haven't done it yet.
Give me a second.
Let's do it now. Sorry, too quick a transition for you. I'm sorry.
I know, right? There we go. News team. There we go.
There it is. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this news report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Matter of fact, I've got my Coachella Vanilla Iced Tea over here, and I am super happy. President Trump is planning to roll out new 25% steel and aluminum import tariffs today. What he told reporters while speaking on Air Force One yesterday, it remains unclear if the steel and the aluminum tariffs will be in addition to the ones that were placed on countries like China. It looks like it, though. There is a court hearing set for today on President Trump's buyout offer to federal employees. A federal judge will be considering whether or not to block this plan that offers federal employees pay through September if they choose to resign. There are 3 unions, along with 20 state attorneys general, that have argued this plan is an unlawful ultimatum. More than 60,000 workers have reportedly accepted this offer so far, so we'll see how it goes. Meanwhile, a federal judge is ordering the Trump administration to fully comply with a previous order that lifts a freeze on federal spending. This comes after a group of Democratic state attorneys general said some of the funds remain frozen last week. People that received grants are not able to access that money. The judge in Rhode Island on Monday said all funding must be restored until a hearing can be held on the group's motion for the order to get a longer term. The Trump administration has previously told states the order didn't apply to certain environmental and infrastructure spending, with some payments being delayed for operational and administrative reasons. Oh, yeah. A third federal judge is now blocking President Trump's executive order aiming to restrict birthright citizenship. The New Hampshire judge granting the injunction this morning, Trump's plan to stop birthright citizenship for some children born in the United States is facing multiple lawsuits now. They argue the executive order is unconstitutional. Judges in Seattle and Maryland handed down similar rulings this week, so that's not going so well for Trump. Senate Democrats are launching a portal for whistleblowers to report the Trump administration's alleged abuses of power. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and the top Democrat on the Homeland Security Committee, Gary Peters, are leading this charge. They wrote in a letter to federal civil service employees and public servants, "We are prepared to issue demand letters, preserve public records, and pursue legal action where necessary." They noted the Whistleblower Protection Act bans any retaliation against federal workers who tip off wrongdoing. The Senate is set to vote this evening to potentially set up a final confirmation vote for Tulsi Gabbard's nomination to be the intelligence chief. Lawmakers will take a procedural vote at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, could lead to Gabbard's final confirmation vote taking place as early as tomorrow. Meanwhile, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is expected to face key votes later this week as he tries to get confirmed as Health and Human Services Secretary. So these nominations and confirmations seem to be going through. As mentioned, Chinese tariffs on some American goods are now in effect as President Trump continues to threaten trade wars with allies and rivals alike. China's retaliatory import taxes include 15% on coal and liquefied natural gas, 10% tariff on oil, farm equipment, and large engines. China is also imposing export controls on several rare earth metals, critical components of electronic and military equipment. Sunday night, Trump said he would be enacting 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imported to the United States, as mentioned. Palestinians would not be welcomed back to the Gaza Strip if the United States took over the region. That from an interview with Fox News' Brett Baer. President Trump said that is because the area would be a demolition site and it would take years to rebuild it. He is proposing resettling the group into Jordan, Egypt, and other nations, but Arab leaders have condemned this plan as a violation of international law. Google is making an ominous omission from its online AI principles pledge. This is the company who they have, what was their original slogan? Do no evil. Well, the search giant removed a section titled Applications We Will Not Pursue. That section used to hold a pledge that Google would not work with governments or organizations to build AI for weapons and surveillance. They took that part out. So does that mean Google will be using their AI for weapons and surveillance? Sure, put a pause on that. We'll find out.
I'm sure they have been.
Yeah. I guess at least, the message is consistent with the deed. President Trump says he is directing the U.S. Treasury to stop minting new pennies. Trump wrote in a post Sunday night on his Truth Social site, which is apparently the way we're getting all of our information out of the White House now, that the country has for far too long minted pennies, which he says literally cost us more than 2 cents. The U.S. Mint reported a loss of more than $85 million in the 2024 fiscal year on the over 3 billion pennies it produced. Say goodbye to the penny. Senator Adam Schiff is calling for firefighters to be exempt from the ongoing federal hiring freeze. President Trump's executive order halted onboarding for thousands of firefighters, and Schiff says it could contribute to staffing issues ahead of the next fire season. The California Democrat wrote a letter to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which oversees the U.S. Forest Service, imploring them exempt federal firefighters. This comes after last month's wildfires in California killed at least 29 people, with the United States Forest Service firefighters credited for saving multiple neighborhoods. There are several people dealing with injuries after a police pursuit ended in a crash in San Francisco. Authorities say the pursuit Sunday ended when this vehicle that was being chased slammed into a parklet at Napper Tandy's Irish Pub in the Mission District. 6 people inside that parklet were hurt, 2 of them critically. Officials say the area was really busy as people were getting ready to watch the Super Bowl at this pub. 2 people have been arrested in connection with this pursuit. Yeah, horrible. You always wonder about those parklets kind of being in the middle of, sticking out in the parking areas and traffic. Ugh, horrible. The North Bay residents are already cleaning up from last week's intense storms and now preparing for another round of rain. Residents living near the Russian River spent much of the weekend cleaning up from flooding. We saw a house float away in the Russian River last week. People living in an RV park in Guerneville still had their furniture outside drying out after much of that park was left underwater. And now forecasters say more rain this week could lead to additional flooding in low-lying areas. As we mentioned earlier, the Philadelphia Eagles' big win, Super Bowl over the big Super Bowl win over the Kansas City Chiefs mean there's a lot of leftover Chiefs merchandise. Unfortunately, they've got jerseys and jackets and hats printed up in advance for the losing team. It's often donated. The NFL partners with a charity called Good 360. They send that merch that nobody wants here because it's not true across the country. They send it abroad to people in need, so you'll see it on people in other countries, not here. The animated film Dog Man is tops at the box office for the second straight week. The movie made nearly $14 million in its second week in theaters, fending off two newcomers. The horror film Heart Eyes took second with $8.5 million in its debut weekend. Meanwhile, the action comedy Love Hurts rounded out the top three in its first weekend in theaters. And because people are apparently bleary-eyed and need their coffee, Starbucks is giving away free coffee all day today. The CEO, Brian Nichols, says it's to promote its rewards loyalty program and to build warm connections with customers. To get the free 12-ounce drink, members can activate the coupon in the app or in-store. Guests will start to see handwritten positive affirmations on their cups, while condiment bars are making a comeback and there's a free coffee refill for regulars. The company has also scaled down 30% of its menu to increase efficiency and customer experiences. So that is what's going on with Starbucks, a company which I don't need to go to because we have the best coffee ever over here. And the best tea as well. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Oh man, Mark says it's the best coffee that has ever gone past his lips. I can tell you that I'm addicted to the loose leaf teas at Coachella Valley Coffee. Please check out the website, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It's all organic. The beans are sourced from all women-owned farms. They make a huge difference in the world, and their product is incredible. You can get the discount just for being a Mark Thompson Show listener when you go to the website, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, put anything in your cart, no matter what it is, you get to the checkout, enter the code MARKT, M-A-R-K-T, at checkout. That'll get you an immediate 10% off. And then it seems like moments later, that box arrives at your door. It happens really fast. And sometimes they'll even put in a few extras for you as well. That is CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Everything is going extremely well.
What he's got going here is a situation.
You people are crazy.
You just don't get it, really. You don't.
I cannot believe it.
It's fantastic.
Thompson, party of four.
What are you doing?
You cannot say you love your country.
Sayonara, sucker. Good day, sir.
Why are you yelling? Seriously, what the
It is the Mark Thompson Show. Mark is making his way home from Las Vegas, but we have a lot of these super chats to thank you for. Luis with $5 says Melania's first message as Kennedy Center member, "Be best art you buy my book, mine." That's from Luis. I think I messed it up, but there you go. Thank you, Luis. Always a great comment from you. Depressed Canadian with $10. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. With the exception of Hillary, Dems, he says, are fairly unforgiving to losing candidates. They don't usually renominate them. The GOP has a history of renominating and electing former candidates. I guess you could say that that's true. I have to really take a look back in history. You say once the Democratic candidate fails, they're off. We don't want them anymore.
I think that's just normally like just American public doesn't vote for a loser kind of thing, right? That's always been a thing. Like once you lose once, usually, right? It's
sure.
always been like, yeah, they're done, you know?
Yeah, we're done. We'll try something new. Yeah, perhaps you're right. Depressed Canadian also with a $5 contribution saying the steel tariffs are mostly an indirect retaliation to the countermeasures issued by Canada as it supplies the majority of steel to the United States. A great point. And Luis throwing down $5. Trump has just declared the Chiefs Super Bowl champions by executive order. Why not, says Luis, just as ridiculous as his Gulf of America executive order. So why not, right? Yeah.
Well, they had to go one up because the refs didn't do it from this year, right?
Tony, you're naughty.
I'm
You're a
joking.
naughty Tony. All right, how about a little bit of law and disorder? What is that? 4-time Super Bowl champ?
I found all like the Super Bowl merch for the teams that they made and then they didn't win. So
yeah.
Like this one, Super
Falcons
Falcons
that's
winning.
funny.
No. 19-0, that didn't happen. So
No,
just I found the picture. Sorry.
Yep, somebody's wearing that somewhere in the world. Not here though. Law and disorder, everybody.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Mentioned it in the news, but let's get into it a little bit more. This horrible accident in San Francisco where a car crashed into a sports bar parklet on Super Bowl Sunday couldn't have happened at a worse time. The San Francisco police say they were chasing a vehicle. They started this behind the Stonestown Galleria, and eventually it came to an end when this car slammed into a parklet at the Napper Tandy. 2 women in the vehicle, both arrested after this incident, happened at 24th and South Van Ness at about 3:05 p.m., so prime Super Bowl viewing time. The suspects fled from the officers who attempted a traffic stop, and the pursuit began. The police say all of the injuries here, though serious, are not life-threatening. The 2 people that were sitting in the parklet are in critical condition. 4 people said to be in moderate condition. All 6 of the injured were patrons of the Napper Tandy sports bar. The parklet looked completely destroyed after this accident, just gone. Very, very scary when you think about how these, little security these parklets offer and how easy they would be to mow down. This happened 3:30 p.m.-ish in the final minutes of the Super Bowl pregame show. So right as people were getting ready to watch the game. Yeah, very scary to see that happen. So that's in San Francisco. Did you see the story about this in, I believe, Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut? Sad story about a 12-year-old boy who was shot multiple times after throwing a snowball at a car. He and a buddy were out playing in the snow when they started throwing snowballs at cars. One of the vehicles was hit, and that driver was mad, circled the block, and chased the children before someone in that car opened fire. One of the boys was shot multiple times. It doesn't say how many, but several times. The boy is still alive. He was taken to Connecticut Children's Hospital for treatment. The wounds said to be non-life-threatening, but people in this area say, listen, why do we have to live like this? To put bullets in a child is incredibly disturbing. You believe that? I mean, were the kids being hooligans, throwing snowballs at cars? Yes. But to shoot a kid over that? Crazy. There's been, Tony, another breakfast heist, unfortunately. We saw the egg heist in Philadelphia. Now it has happened in Seattle. 500 plus eggs stolen in what's being called the Seattle breakfast heist. Happened at a West Seattle cafe. Thieves made off with more than 500 eggs and other breakfast goods. Officers responded to the Luna Park Cafe after a report of suspicious activity was captured on the security cameras there. 2 men, according to police, were seen entering a refrigerated shed at the restaurant and removing boxes containing about 540 eggs, valued at a mere $387, along with bacon, ground beef, blueberries, and liquid egg products. They loaded those items, allegedly, into a stolen van or into a van and then fled the scene. And this is what happens. This is at a time when egg prices have shot up because of the bird flu outbreak. The total value for the stolen goods, they say it's about $780. An employee of the cafe later arrived, they say, to find the van had actually returned to the property. They were coming back for more, Tony. One of the suspects was spotted near the shed once more, quickly got into the van.
For that shed.
Exactly. Quickly got into the van, and the suspects left the scene again. But yeah, their first haul was so lucrative, they came back, circled back around to see if they could get some more.
First time was too easy. They're like, we're going back.
Yeah, they need better shed security. There was an incident in the Bay Area. This one goes on the stupid burglar list. This guy was arrested after allegedly burglarizing a gas station and stealing multiple candy bars and snacks. This happened in Sebastopol in Sonoma County. The police noticed a white pickup leaving the Chevron gas station near Highway 12. Police said the pickup was speeding without its headlights on. Okay, there's your first mistake. Officers also noticed the gas
looked casual, at least, right?
That's a lot of candy. Look at how much candy he took. Officers noticed the gas station's windows were shuttered and candy bars were scattered all over the ground. According to the police, dozens of candy bars and other snacks were in the bed of this pickup truck. They also found a crowbar in the truck. The suspect, according to police, admitted to burglarizing the gas station and stealing the candy, confirmed by surveillance video. That's quite a haul. That would take you some time to steal all that candy. Yeah.
About an afternoon to eat.
Must have been really hungry. Ed Sheeran was busted in India. Why? For busking. Yeah. No, he didn't get very far. They pulled out his microphone plug pretty quickly. Poor Ed Sheeran. Just trying to do something nice for the people. And boom. Yeah. He's like, what's going on? So Ed Sheeran was in southern India this week. He was trying to surprise fans with a live performance, but police swooped in on this whole situation, pulled the plug. They said, Ed Sheeran, you did not get permission. You cannot be singing on the street. This is a 4-time Grammy winner. He was in between shows in the southern city of Bangalore when he decided to do some busking out on the street, basically put on a free show for people who didn't get tickets. But midway through his rendition of Shape of You, a policeman in a uniform yanked out his guitar and microphone cables, according to images published on social media, prompting the singer to throw up his hands in frustration. Police say they previously denied Sheeran's permission to busk in the area and that a citizen had called a helpline to report the infringement once Ed Sheeran started playing. They say we rejected it because this street called Church Street is a very busy area and we try to keep the people moving along there. But Sheeran claimed the street gig had been given the all clear. He said we had permission to busk. It wasn't just us randomly turning up. They said we could do it. The incident, of course, as Tony is showing you now, went viral on social media with one user posting part of Sheeran's performance. Went for a casual walk, they wrote, on Church Street and stumbled upon Ed Sheeran performing live. What a city. Other online reaction, critical of local authorities, with some saying the performance was unlikely to cause any trouble and they should really be focusing on more important issues. Sheeran is a very popular artist around the world and in India and played a sold-out gig in Mumbai last year. He's set to perform 2 more shows in India before heading to China and the United Arab Emirates. So look for him on a street in those countries. Ed Sheeran, busted in India. And that is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Well, Tony, I also put together a stories from the sky. Should we do that next?
All right, I'm ready.
Oh, you ready?
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough. I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane. Everybody strap in.
And Tony, if you see any comments from the chat that you feel are worthy of showcasing, please do.
Right.
The first story is about Venezuela calling the U.S. seizure of a plane a brazen theft. Venezuela accusing the United States of theft after the United States seized one of its government aircraft in the Dominican Republic. This happened when U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio oversaw the seizure of this plane Thursday. It's the second one that the United States has confiscated in less than a year. U.S. authorities say there were legal grounds for the seizure based on violations of U.S. sanctions, export controls, and money laundering. But the Venezuelan Foreign Ministry is calling Rubio an aircraft thief. The United States has long imposed sanctions on Venezuela in response to what they say is criminality, corruption, and repression under their leader, Nicolas Maduro. Rubio told reporters the message is that when there are sanctions, because they are violating human rights, they are violating a whole series of things, traveling to Iran, helping countries that really wish to harm the United States. Rubio said these sanctions are going to be applied and they will be enforced. And so now Maduro is pretty upset that he's got a second plane seized by the United States of America. The Venezuelan Foreign Ministry said it would take all necessary actions to denounce this theft and demand the immediate return of its aircraft. I don't think that's going to be happening. We commandeered another one. In September, then under President Biden, the first Venezuelan government plane in the Dominican Republic that had been used to transport President Maduro on international trips was seized as well. So now we have two of them. How many more are we going to take? I don't know. There are some passengers that were on a Frontier Airlines flight that overpowered this passenger who apparently punched out a plane window during a flight. Yeah, pretty scary. The guy was asked to move from his seat. This was on a Frontier Airlines flight to Houston, and this man was asked to move, and he did not want to. Got violent about it, punching and kicking in his seat until he cracked one layer of the plane's window mid-flight. Thank God there are more than one layer to these windows on airplanes, because he cracked the first layer. Houston police said they were notified that there was a combative passenger aboard flight F9 4856 out of Denver headed to Houston. They didn't name this man because so far the airline has declined to press charges. But when they met the plane at the gate, the officers were seen taking a restrained man away in a wheelchair. Ew. The lady in front of this man asked him to switch seats, and right when she did, he apparently started kicking profusely, punching the window. She said it was really, really scary. There were no police or air marshals aboard this plane. Passengers, including a military veteran, had to leap into action here, detain this man. They used zip ties and shoelaces to restrain him. The stewardess was walking up and down the aisles saying, "Does anybody have a belt? Does anybody have a shoestring?" This is what they resort to. They should have, don't you think they should have either handcuffs or zip ties or something on the plane for this type of emergency?
Belt they always use in the like demonstration.
That's that's right. They've got some straps right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, passengers photographed a broken window with nearby bloodstains on the flight. Now the FBI is involved. There's the bloody window. They are looking into it, the FBI, and yeah, pretty scary. That's the flight. When someone says, "Hey, how was the flight?" Got a story for you. Wow. Speaking of changing seats, a plane passenger accepted $100 from this older lady in exchange for an aisle seat. Apparently, she was feeling kind of claustrophobic in her seat. And so she requested that she would like to switch. And when someone switched with her and allowed her to sit in the window seat, she gave him $100. The airplane passenger said her act of kindness, giving money for that seat, felt weird because the reward was unexpected. Hey, if you have a commodity that you want to sell, go ahead. The passengers were in first class when they came upon this elderly lady who was having a hard time getting her bag in the overhead. So first thing that happened is the person stepped in to help her do that. And then they realized they were seated right next to each other. She was in 1D, and she told the person she felt claustrophobic in the window seats in this particular seat configuration and offered him $100 to switch with her. He said he declined the money, but he was happy to switch for free as long as she wouldn't be bothered by him needing to get out on occasion. So she gave up her window seat and switched to the aisle because she felt claustrophobic being penned in there. She kept insisting, said the man, that she needed to do something nice for me, but I really didn't care, and I told her just pay it forward to someone else. As the flight on the way from Boston to Atlanta went on, the pair ended up chatting the whole way, discussing their families, their careers, and more. And they land, and again, she tries to give the guy $100. He said, I tried to refuse again, but she told me to take it and give it to my kids, but to explain to them how being nice to others can lead to something nice in return. He said that's when he relented and finally just took the $100. He intends to keep the story from his kids because they'll expect him to pay them anytime they do something nice. There are people that are commenting on the story. They say, accept the gift. It means more to the giver than the receiver in this case. And other people were just happy to hear about a positive experience on a flight instead of the one where the guy punches someone out. So, you know, it happens. I don't know. I mean, I would think that if someone offered to pay me to move seats, would you have a problem accepting the money?
I think about it. It depends, I guess, if I'm sitting with, my friends and stuff like that, but I don't talk to anyone on the planes anyway. I don't know. It would be a on the moment decision, I think.
A spur of the moment deal. Too. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if she's that desperate to switch seats, I tend to think that in first class that nobody there probably needs the $100.
Yeah.
And so it's like, come on, just keep your $100 and I'll swap seats with you. I don't know.
Sometimes I say like get the aisle seat so you can, because I got broad shoulders. So I could like go out the aisle at least a little bit for like comfort sometimes.
Sure. Although sometimes that'll get you nailed by the cart going by.
Oh yeah, I have.
Yeah, it happens.
I've been cracked by it.
Lastly, a woman apparently has a pretty great response to a plane passenger manspreading into her space. I don't know if this has happened to you, but the woman in the story has posted a video on TikTok that has been viewed quite a bit. She wrote, point of view, you're a woman sitting next to a man on a plane. He looks like he has the same problem as I have. My legs can't fit, said one user. Someone said it's something any tall person would do when flying. You just can't fit. But she said, no, I'm the same height as this guy. And for some reason, he has to manspread into my seat area. She said she asked him, please, to stay in his own area. And it worked for a few minutes. And then he was manspreading back into her zone. The woman said, she and her friend made it clear this man should not be in her space, and he moved, but only temporarily. So you can't really see from the picture how much he's manspreading into this area. I don't know. That doesn't look that bad to me.
I mean, that's just the nature of they make the things are so tiny now,
Yeah.
The way they just cramp everyone in. And it's like, if you have any height, yeah, and guys have, reasons sometimes.
Reasons is good enough for me, Tony.
You know what I mean?
Did you know the term manspreading was added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 2015? Yeah, it was. So this is the practice of men sitting with their legs widely apart. I don't know. Maybe it's because men don't have practice sitting with their knees together as women do,
It's not comfortable.
Not comfortable. My husband says the exact same thing. He's like, you don't understand. My legs just don't go that way.
No,
like,
again,
how do your legs not go that way?
That and there's something in the way.
Oh. Enough said, Tony. Man spread away.
No, it's
yeah. And that. No, hey. I understand. It's Stories from the Sky.
This has been Stories from the Sky. captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
Oh my, let's do a little bit more news. I have some stories here. One of the things we talked about at the beginning of the show are these two storms set to pummel California. We've got large amounts of ice and snow to the Midwest and the East. So those are the two storms happening in other parts of the country. It looks like we're going to see snow through the Ohio Valley and into Virginia and New England by tomorrow. There are 29 million people right now under some sort of winter alert as a result. And again, we know big rain coming for Southern California and Northern California as well. There are immigration courts that are dealing with a massive backlog. New data showing the backlog exceeds 4 million pending immigration cases right now. It's a record high that could present a big challenge for the Trump White House as it looks to deport thousands of people. These courts fall under the Justice Department, and they get to decide whether to deport immigrants or not. A sad story out of Guatemala. At least 51 people are dead after a bus crashed into a polluted ravine. It happened today. A Guatemala City fire spokesman said this bus was crossing over the Puente Belice bridge crossing when it dived 60 feet over a cliff. The Guatemalan president, Bernardo Arevalo, said their pain is my pain. He has declared 3 days of national mourning because of this. Such a sad situation. Zoos across the country are offering unique ways for people to get some revenge on their ex this Valentine's Day. At the San Antonio Zoo, they say you can name a cockroach, a rodent, or even a vegetable after your ex. At the Lehigh Valley Zoo in Pennsylvania, you could name a fish for feeding to a penguin. Name a fish after your ex and they'll feed it to a penguin. Well, that is what is happening there. Just a touch of news. Let's get back into some of the other stories that we had for you this morning. And that is, I don't know if you saw this one about Prince Harry. Of all the important things for the president to worry about, this seems like it just isn't. But mentioning immigration, Trump says he will not be deporting Prince Harry. He says because he has enough problems with his wife, meaning Meghan Markle. Trump says he's not interested in deporting Prince Harry, who lives here in California in Montecito in the Santa Barbara area. He said, I don't want to do that. I'll leave him alone. He's got enough problems with his wife. Trump said she's terrible. That's a change in tune because last year at this time, Trump accused former President Biden's administration of protecting Harry. He said he wouldn't do the same if he were in the White House. Trump said last year, Harry betrayed the Queen, and that's unforgivable. He said Harry would be on his own if Trump won re-election. And now he's not planning to deport Prince Harry. So there you go. A change in tune on that. Something else I wanted to talk about, some video I wanted to show you. We talked earlier with Gary Dietrich about the undermining of the judicial system by the Trump administration. And I had some video I wanted to show you from Senator Chris Murphy talking about how he feels this is a severe situation. So I'm hoping, Tony, we're able to show that Chris Murphy video. He talks about this being really a red alert kind of moment. Let's take a listen.
Simple. Let's bring around conservative attorney George Conway.
Oh, this is the Conway video. Yeah. That's okay. We can let's hear it. This is George Conway also regarding the same issue.
Remarkable that these people went to law school. But I want you to just talk just in general, and we're going to go through again just to show all the times Joe Biden's executive orders were either enjoined or overturned. But this happens, right? Presidents do executive orders at the beginning of the term, not to this degree, not pushing the boundaries as much perhaps as President Trump has done. But this happens. There are challenges. Some things get through, some things don't. But you don't have a vice president. I guess Spiro Agnew probably did. But you don't have a vice president going out there going, oh, the court can't do this. They can't stop our legitimate power when, of course, again, the Supreme Court determines what the executive branch's legitimate powers are and what they are not. And it has been that way for 240 years, has it not?
Yeah, absolutely. And, JD Vance is an embarrassment to the law school that I attended. But the fact of the matter is he's telling us something that we should have already known. And last week I said it. They are not going to obey court orders. They have decided that they are going to push the boundaries on executive power by basically infringing on the Article 1 power of Congress. And they are violating they're violating the Constitution, the text of the Constitution in the birthright citizenship issue. They are violating the text of statutes by having DOJ run around and do all the things that have been doing these executive orders. There's no reason that this government that has decided not to obey the laws and the Constitution of the United States is going to obey a court order. And as you know, Joe, having practiced law, there's really only one way that courts can enforce their orders when somebody is being contumacious and refusing to obey an order. And that's to send the U.S. Marshals out to take somebody in and to hold them in contempt or to otherwise enforce court orders. Well, who does the U.S. Marshal Service work for? The U.S. Marshal Service is part of the United States Department of Justice. It reports to Donald J. Trump. And what's going to happen here, mark my words, is that at some point, they are going to basically tell the United States Marshal Service, do not enforce any of these orders. We will not obey them, and you are not to enforce them. And once that happens, I hope it doesn't happen, but I know in my heart that it will. Our 236-year experiment in the federal rule of law, in democratic self-governance for the United States of America, in American constitutionalism, is essentially over.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, for playing that video. I appreciate it. That's pretty hard to hear. Conway thinking that if this happens, America as we know it is done. Absolutely done. I know we have the Chris Murphy video as well. And again, he calls it a red alert moment. By the way, our thanks to MSNBC and Morning Joe for that former video. This is a video from ABC this week, over the weekend, and Chris Murphy talking about what's going on as far as the Trump administration now not respecting the judicial branch of government and what that could mean.
Yeah, listen, I think this is the most serious constitutional crisis the country has faced, certainly since Watergate. The president is attempting to seize control of power and for corrupt purposes. The president wants to be able to decide how and where money is spent so that he can reward his political friends, he can punish his political enemies. That is the evisceration of democracy. You stand that next to the wholesale endorsement of political violence with the pardons given to every single January 6th rioter, including the most violent who beat police officers over the head with baseball bats. And you can see what he's trying to do here. He is trying to crush his opposition by making them afraid of losing federal funding, by making them afraid of physical violence. And so, yes, this is a red alert moment when this entire country has to understand that our democracy is at risk. And for what? The billionaire takeover of government. I'm sure we'll talk about this, but Elon Musk is inside our federal agencies.
But let me just say right now, they want to cut the federal budget. They would all disagree that it's corruption or anything else. They want to cut the federal budget and the workforce. Do you have issues with that?
Well, I don't, but there is no evidence that that is the goal. Ultimately, at USAID, they sent a whole bunch of people home who are still getting paid. And I think you have to ask, why are they doing this if it's not actually accruing any savings? And to me, again, the reason is that somebody like Elon Musk stands to gain from the closure of USAID. It makes America much less safe around the world, but it helps China. USAID is a thorn in the side of the Chinese government. Elon Musk has many major business interests at stake inside Beijing. And so making Beijing happy is going to accrue to the financial benefit of Elon Musk and many billionaires who outsource work to China.
Senator,
thank you, Tony. I appreciate it. So there you go. Red alert moment. It's interesting how differently we can approach these things. Because I'm looking at the disregard for Congress and their oversight of the federal purse strings. I'm looking at now the seeming disregard from the executive branch toward the judicial branch. And I'm looking at possibly the end of the American experiment as well. And again, I don't want to be hysterical about it or think that, things are happening when they really aren't. But in my eyes, this is the way we're going. And every single action like this raises huge concerns for me. And I'm afraid that when Trump is done, we won't have the same America that we have always had. I had a friend from high school. I have more of an acquaintance from high school that I'm a Facebook friend of. And he's this really docile guy. He's a house painter, nice, never really had a lot to say, kind of a quiet guy. He wrote this: Elon Musk, one of the world's elite businessmen, America trusted him enough to give $50 billion in grants. The people who are terrified of him are hiding criminal activities. It is obvious. Go ahead, he wrote, and tell lawmakers how terrified you are. They will be able to sort through the trash with your help. We will know who you are. Wow. Just wow. The difference in our thought processes about my embracing the Constitution so tightly and him being more focused on criminal activities and outing people who don't agree with you, it's crazy. And these are just two acquaintances on Facebook, really. I know we all have people in our life like this, but it's just wild to me how differently we could see things based, I guess, on the information that we have. I was pretty disturbed by that. I'm going to go to the chat because I know you guys are talking about this too. But it's the price of eggs, says Phineas. Yeah, price of eggs are not doing so well right now. Randy writing, if Kim's vision is correct, then California, Oregon, Washington should secede and become Canada's 11th province. Well, Randy, I would say this. To secede means that I'm ready to throw America and the idea of it away. And I'm not ready to throw it away. Is it in crisis? I think so. Am I ready to just wad it up like trash and throw it in the garbage can and not fight for it? I'm an American. We don't do that. So I disagree with the secession. Just Give Me Truth says, so you don't know this guy as well as you think you did. Right. People turn into the right-wing fanatics. My cousin was one. It's true. You think people are just, kind and unassuming. And then they bust out with something like that. Oh. Brenda says Musk could have changed documents so that they show Democratic lawmakers and prosecutors so he doesn't have to committed tax fraud. Okay, I'm not exactly understanding that text, but yeah. Mars says, sure, let's let our taxpayer funds continue going to fraud and waste. So I think one thing we could agree on, Mars, is that there's fraud and waste in the American government and the way we spend money. Going about fixing it is where we disagree on the ways to do that. I think you can attack fraud, waste, and abuse by going through the proper channels, by working with Congress, who, by the way, is Republican controlled. You don't need to rush in and strong arm everybody and freak everyone out that you're going against the Constitution. There are ways to do this that are proper, and this isn't one of them. So do I agree with ferreting out waste, fraud, and abuse? Sure. That sounds great. Let's figure out, are we spending whatever it is, $1 million on an ashtray? Are we, spending ridiculous amounts of money on pennies? Fine. Let's figure it out, but do it in a way that you just don't disregard the Constitution. I hope that makes sense to you. Rich writes, as President Trump refused to concede, the response was not mass action. but crickets. Well, that seems to be, other than a couple of Democrats that we just heard from, crickets from the GOP as their powers are being stomped on. I don't hear very many people speaking up. Not at all. Silicon Valley Blocks says the courts need a police force. Gordon writes Trump threw democracy under the bus. Depressed Canadian with the $10 super sticker says the GOP renominated previous nominees like Nixon in 68 and Trump in 24, and previous runners-up with Reagan, McCain, and Romney. Hillary's the only modern Dem runner-up who was nominated later on. Depressed Canadian also with another $10 contribution to the show, saying if history is any indication, the next Dem nominee will be a governor who hasn't run in the previous cycle. Senators and former VPs, with the exception of Biden, usually lose, he writes. Thank you for the contributions to the show and for the comments as well. I will say this show is crowdfunded, and I have been remiss in not talking about that. If you would like to support the Mark Thompson Show, as you see, the super chats and super stickers are open. Also, you can check the website, themarkthompsonshow.com. That is where you will find the Patreon link and the PayPal link. That's really the bread and butter of this show, and that's what has kept us rolling for the last 2 years, because you have supported us and you have allowed the staff to continue on working on this show, and you keep us going. And for that, we are so incredibly grateful. TheMarkThompsonShow.com is where you will find all of those links, including the Get Mark merch link as well. And there's a lot going on there. We are, there it is. Happy non-denominational holidays. Speaking of that, Tony, what's the new number for the number of subscribers on the Mark Thompson Show? Are we any closer to 100,000? How much closer?
We're at 97,310. So we got about almost 100 subs today.
That's pretty good.
So thank you, everyone.
We didn't quite get to 100,000 while Mark was gone, but that's okay. It's all right. We'll get there. How exciting. I wonder where he's going to put the plaque. We got to put it in a place of honor.
Oh, it's got to go on the shelf behind him. I think in place of the pillow or something is probably what I'm thinking.
Maybe with a light shining on it. I mean, we really need to do it up. I think that's going to be a great idea. Oh, I see another contribution coming in from Depressed Canadian, who says, I have personally had friends self-radicalized to the far left and the far right. It's partly because people can cultivate their own echo chambers. That's true. They have a tendency to take discussions personally. I don't know how you don't, I mean, when my acquaintance posts something like that, it's hard not to take it personally. You know, when someone is so blatantly disregarding the Constitution, it's hard for me not to think that's really un-American. So I know we all have these relationships in life we have to work on. In this case, it's not a very important relationship, but yeah, I'm telling you. Oh, Tammy writes this, and this is good. Tammy says, remember to like the videos released after the show. Hike up those like numbers, then it's presented to more people, then we get more subscribers. So we'll get to 100,000.
And share. Yep, exactly. All that stuff.
Like it, share it, all of that makes a huge, huge difference. I know. So I love it. Yeah, Citizen Morgan, go Mark, Kim, and Tony. Absolutely. We'll take it. We'll take all your good wishes. We like
Mark
it.
On me? Is that what? Is that what?
I don't know. All right, Tony, we have come to the end of the Mark Thompson Show. I don't want to come to the end, but to the end we have come. Mark will be back tomorrow. He'll tell us all about his big fancy trip to Las Vegas. And I want to tell you what's on the show tomorrow. We have, of course, David K. Johnston coming through to talk politics, and I can't wait to hear what he will say.
Actually, I think I saw this. Sorry, just
No.
I think he got moved to Wednesday.
Oh, you're right. He did get moved to Wednesday. Okay. He did. And tomorrow we have J.R. Jackson who will be on the show. Jefferson Graham as well. Then Wednesday it's David K. Johnston. Thank you. Please join me for the after party live. That happens in just about 15 minutes.
Links in chat.
Tony puts the link in the chat. Come on over. Please subscribe. I could use all the subscribers I could get. And stick around. We've got some great stories for today. So that's it. This is the Mark Thompson Show. Thank you, Tony, for all your help. Thank you, everybody, for being here on the Mark Thompson Show.
For the Mark Thompson Show.
Look at that.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Post. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
See you, Ron.
Bye-bye. Bye, Tony.
See ya.